There's a Lovable app that reached $1 million. Someone just built a company with Lovable that hit $1 million in 5 months. So the note from the actual company, this marks the week that ShiftNext crosses $1 million in revenue. The primary software and infrastructure we're running off is Lovable. Good morning, everybody. It is time for more AI news with myself, Kyle, AI with Kyle. I've been told that on YouTube, some people are finding it quiet. Hopefully it's better today. I've bumped it up a little bit in YouTube. Should be okay. And also we had a fan noise coming from the camera, which has been picked up on TikTok. Hopefully you can't hear that as much because I'm now using this microphone instead of the microphone on the telephone. Do tell me if it's still a problem. I am continuing to work through technical improvements all of the time because that's the name of the game. And unfortunately, when you're doing lives, these things happen. I'm doing 2 lives a day now. Actually, today I'm going to be doing 3 because I'm doing a webinar as well. So 3 hours of sitting in front of the camera. This is my best friend here, this camera. So now we've got AI with Kyle, which is the AI news and updates of the day, looking at what's been going on, followed by building in public. So I'm building an AI application in public. We're on day 4. So I started on the 1st of September, building a app inside of Lovable and taking it to, I hope. And then the third thing I'm going to do today is going to be a workshop. It's an online workshop at 6 p.m. London time. It's going to be about giving AI workshops to businesses and getting paid for that. So if you have any expertise in artificial intelligence and you work within an industry that needs help working out how to deal with AI, which is pretty much all industries right now, then there's a really good opportunity for you to go in and be that educator to open the doors to artificial intelligence to a company and get paid well. So I charge a couple of $1,000s per hour to go and do this, and my students do as well. So it's good money, but more than that, it opens up the ability to work with companies on other things like consultation, advisory, implementation, etc., etc. Yep, it's well worth checking out. That will be at 6 p.m. tonight, London time. But let's hop on. Sorry, just adjusting stuff. There we go. Let's hop into the news of the day. Good name for a show that includes myself and artificial intelligence. We are looking at the news of the day and I'll be answering questions from the audience as well. Good morning, everybody. So, got a few things today. No big announcements, no new models per se, but things are just bubbling along. The big news yesterday was Anthropic's raise. They raised 13 billion or 18 billion, and they're now valued at 183 billion, which is more than Disney, more than Nike, etc. I've even forgotten the exact amount of the raise. At this point, when it's in the billions, these numbers become almost meaningless. So just an extra couple of billions, that's a lot of money. So there are questions of whether we are approaching bubble territory, because the amount of money being thrown around is a lot, and there are questions of whether the revenues and profits will ever align with that. We don't know, but I can see why these criticisms could be leveled at artificial intelligence, especially for people who looked at the dot-com boom and the dot-com crash in the early 2000s. They might be seeing parallels, and I can understand why. What I would say to people who do point this out, extremely valid, is that yes, we had an over enthusiastic reaction in terms of the financial market. So a lot of money was thrown at these companies, investment money. Some of it was good money, some of it was bad money, but a lot of investment was put in. People were basically speculating on anything that had anything to do with the internet. We're seeing something a bit similar now with artificial intelligence. However, out the end of the dot-com crash, we had the internet. We had companies like Amazon and Google raising from the ashes, who became extremely important. I think we'll probably see something similar where we'll have a financial correction, but I believe, and people will debate this, I believe that the underlying technology, generative artificial intelligence and other forms of artificial intelligence, is incredibly valuable and will continue to be valuable. And we're still working out how to fully utilize it in our day-to-day lives and businesses. So I think we might have something similar, an overheated market leading to a correction. Everyone's saying, oh, this is because AI is terrible. No, it's not because AI is terrible. AI is very useful and extremely functional in a way that Web3 technologies like blockchain and cryptocurrencies never really found their use case. That's controversial, but I think fair in this case, personally. But out the back of this, we are going to continue to use these AI technologies. So the overheating is in the financial investment. Although that might also be wrong. It depends on how much value these AI companies can generate and whether they can bring themselves to profitability in the next couple of years. But right now, a lot of money's been thrown in. So the requirements in terms of their revenue and their profit for them to sustain those valuations is extremely high. Because again, Anthropic is now valued at $183 billion, which is more than Nike, more than Disney, way more than someone like Ford. I think it's 5 or 6 times more than Ford, more than Boeing, much larger than these companies that have been around for decades or even hundreds of years, but they have done it in 3 years. So you can see why people might think it's overheated. Okay, let's hop into the news. First, I think a funny one. Yeah, I'm going to say it's a funny one. This is probably the most 2025 headline I've ever seen, because we live in a weird world. The headline is Luigi Mangione's likeness used to model shirt on Shein, or Shein, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, which is like a low-cost clothing producer. Luigi Mangione, the famous or infamous CEO killer, he's been used as a model to model a very nice looking shirt on the Shein website. So the image as it appears on the Shein website, its exact origin is unclear, but some have suggested it might have been generated by artificial intelligence. Yeah, I think it might have been. If you're on TikTok and you can't see this right now, it's well worth looking up. It's on the BBC today. I'm sure if you put in Luigi Mangione Shein, it's going to come up immediately. It looks like a nano banana or similar AI model has been used to make this. So fast fashion giant Shein has launched an investigation after an image of Luigi Mangione, accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York last year, was used to model a shirt. So again, this is the most 2025 story that we could ever tell. It is AI generation, it is Luigi Mangione, and it is fast fashion, all kind of colliding in this bizarre set of circumstances, which if somebody saw this headline a few years ago, it would be something from The Onion. But now, today, it's, yeah, I get it. It's a very nice photo. And the shirt that Luigi is modeling is only $10, so £7.50, so good quality. So a spokesperson from Shein has told BBC News the image in question was provided by a third-party vendor and was removed immediately upon discovery. It's always a good defense, isn't it? Oh, we hired somebody, a contractor. Ooh, it wasn't us. We have stringent standards for all listings on our platform, they said. We are conducting a thorough investigation, strengthening our monitoring process, and will take appropriate action against the vendor in line with our policies. Yeah, so they got caught. It's almost certainly artificial intelligence. I don't think Luigi Mangione is modelling from prison. So BBC Verify used the facial recognition tool Amazon Recognition and found a 99.9% similarity score between a fake image and a real picture of Mangione appearing in court. Okay, it's unclear whether it was created using artificial intelligence or a manual editing tool, probably AI. The image is low resolution, but there are a few signs it may have been AI generated or manipulated. It includes lighting and texturing of the image, particularly of the skin, as well as the appearance of a blob-like artifact above the right forearm. The right hand also doesn't appear to show the typical segmentation of fingers. Oh yeah, I see it. That blob, though, looks a bit like a Photoshop artifact to me. But he's got a bit of a hand like this, like a bit of a flipper. So yeah, I thought that this was a interesting piece of news, and as I say, something that could only exist in 2025 because the world's getting pretty weird. There's one thing I wanted to point out. This is not news, but it might be of interest. It might be of interest to people out there. It's about Perplexity. So Perplexity, you can get a free trial right now, and a very easy way to do it. So Perplexity offers free Perplexity trials via like your Revolut card and through Air Miles, etc., etc. But there's a nice easy one now, which is if you have a PayPal account, any PayPal account, you can get Perplexity Pro for free. So this is really going to open the floodgates and allow a lot of people to get Perplexity Pro for free. So it is exclusive for PayPal users. Get a free year of Pro completely free when you connect your PayPal account and choose a valid payment method. And it is $0 for 12 months and then $20 a month. Terms apply. So you'd have to check out those terms, but you can claim 12 months of Perplexity Pro for free. Try saying that fast. The reason you might want to do this is Perplexity Pro actually gives you access to all of the models, not just Perplexity's own model, which is called Sonar. I should know this. I think it's Sonar, but it gives you access to GPT-5, it gives you access to Claude, it gives you access to Gemini, I think probably Grok. I'm just trying to find which ones exactly. So you get access to all of the top level models via Perplexity Pro for one $20 a month subscription. However, right now you can do it for free if you just link up your PayPal account. Here we go. So it gives you access to O3, Claude 4 Sonnet Thinking, Claude 4.1 Opus Thinking, and Grok 4. So it gives you paid access to models you'd normally have to pay for individually. So if you wanted full access, you'd pay for them. Obviously, all of those providers have free plans, but this might be a nice way to do it. So best way to find this, I could give you the URL. It's perplexity.ai/join/PayPal-subscription, or just Google Perplexity Pro PayPal, and it should turn up. That if you find the Reddit where I found this, then you'll be able to find a link that will get you there, and that will get you free Perplexity Pro for a year. Obviously, if you don't want to pay afterwards, make sure you cancel your subscription, just get the 12 months, but go ahead, and that's going to get you free access to ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, and obviously Perplexity Pro. I thought I wanted to flag that up because it's a useful one. Right, I'm going to hop over to questions. And remember, everybody, I am building in public. I'm building a new application. Yesterday, we ran into a lot of problems and I didn't actually make very much progress. It keeps happening. As soon as I get off stream, I'm able to crack through it in a few minutes. So I think part of it, a me problem, it's doing things live on stream forces me to, I think, move faster and less carefully. I guess there's a pressure there. So as I relax into that, hopefully we'll see less of that and we won't run into errors. That said, even running into errors is quite useful because it happens when you're vibe coding. So we went through why or how we can deal with errors and how we continue to go forward. Hello, someone trying to spam my chat for cleaning in Toronto. That's very specific. Kent Clark, is Perplexity Pro worth it? It is when it's free. So yeah, I would try it free for a year using that PayPal method. And yeah, anything's worth it when it's free. I would say in general, it's a good way to access the top level models without having to have multiple subscriptions. So instead of having a Claude subscription, a ChatGPT subscription, a X Premium or Grok or whatever it is subscription, you can just get them all through Perplexity Pro. And Perplexity itself is a really good model, especially if you're doing research. It's still one of the top tools for that. Sorry, not model, but a tool for doing so. I would say Perplexity used to be more valuable having a subscription because it used to be the case that you couldn't trust ChatGPT, you couldn't trust Claude because they would just make things up. I mean, they still do, but they have the ability now to search, and they use search a lot more, and then they cite their sources. Perplexity used to be the only tool that would do that. So you would ask it to do some research, it would go off, check 20, 30 websites, and then bring back that information and cite and say, this is exactly where this information, this data, this fact comes from here, which was really useful. So Perplexity used to be, a year or so ago, the only tool that did that, which was killer, absolutely killer. So I used to recommend it a lot. However, ChatGPT, Claude, etc. basically added that in their deep research and deep thinking modes, which kind of cuts the legs out from underneath Perplexity and makes it less valuable. So definitely try it. Whether or not it's worth $20 a month depends on your uses. But at $0 a month, using that offer, yeah, definitely worth it. Interesting question. Mind and Glory. I use GPT-5 for a better prompt. I know there's a level of randomness with LLMs, but how can I stop getting different answers to the same prompt? You can't. So this is the wonderful and the terrible thing about generative AI and large language models. I can give exactly the same prompt 10 different times and I will get 10 different answers. That's because the way the next token is selected, the process of generating the text that we see on screen is stochastic. It has a random nature to it. That is fantastic because it leads to the creativity and the kind of human feel of artificial intelligence. Because if it was purely deterministic, if it just gives us the same answer for the same question every single time, it would feel like a computer. Computers are deterministic. So when you give a piece of code to a computer, it will carry out that instruction the same every single time. That's why computer programs work. That's why they're so reliable. Large language models, generative AI does not work like that, which gives it that creative edge, but also means you're not going to get the same response. So if you need the large language model to give you something very specific, so for example, if you're passing data through a flow and you need it to output in a certain format, then you would specify in extreme detail what kind of format you need, and you'd probably specify like a JSON output. So that's going to be mainly if you need to move through data. So you can talk to ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to make sure the same input leads to the same output. Can you help me work this out with JSON so that when a certain input comes in, we'll use JSON, we'll structure the data, structure the information, and then we'll have an output which is going to be similar. It will probably still vary a little bit. It depends what you're trying to build, obviously. But this is the joy and the curse of large language models. If you need it to be exactly the same, so one input turning to one output, don't use AI. Use code. So use a programming language like Python to move through data. If you need the creativity, if you need the kind of the spark, the inspiration that large language models give you, then that's fine. But we need to make sure that we don't need a deterministic, exactly the same answer each and every time. So we will get this different answer, and that is on purpose. Okay, hopping over to, so we've looked at Perplexity, we've looked at Luigi Mangione, modeling Shein. Which one? Where is it? There it is. Interesting article. Again, we don't have much huge news at the moment, but I thought this was probably going to be relevant because we're about to see the new iPhone. iPhones normally come out in September, so we're going to be seeing it very shortly. But there is a study that's been done. Let me find how many people they asked, because we need to check this, because this has burnt me before when I've gone through a study and then found out 50 people answered, and so that's not very useful. CNET commissioned YouGov PLC to conduct the survey. All figures are from YouGov. The total sample size was 2,200 adults. Okay, fine. Fieldwork was undertaken in May 2025. Survey was carried out online, and the figures have been weighted and are representative of all US adults. Okay, that is fine. It's not a highly rigorous scientific study, but as a survey, absolutely fine. So the study shows that smartphone purchasers, people who are about to buy a new phone, whether it's Google or iPhone, they do not care about artificial intelligence features. I do not blame them on this. I'm fully with them. They did a survey of these 2,200 people, and they found that 11% of US smartphone owners choose to upgrade their device because of AI features. So that's the reason why they're upgrading. And last year, previously, it used to be 18%. So there's been a drop from 18% to 11%. Furthermore, about 3 in 10 people didn't find mobile AI helpful and don't want to see more features added. So 30% don't want any more AI. So that's a big chunk of people. And this is one of the future of generative AI is moving it onto mobile devices. I was about to pick up my phone, but I'm talking to it. We call it edge AI, so allowing artificial intelligence to be run on devices. And a lot of companies are working towards this, and it's tricky because you need to fit massive processing power into a small device and make sure it doesn't burst into flames. And you need to make sure it's at a price point that makes sense for the consumer as well. So it's a big challenge right now, how to make these edge AI chipsets. So Huawei and various companies are working on this. I think what's happening here is that most of the AI that has been added to phones so far is software. It is, AI image editing. It is the ability to make memojis or whatever they're called on Apple using artificial intelligence. It is all software based. We haven't seen AI hardware yet being put into devices because that's very much on the edge. It's not ready for the consumer level yet. So what people are thinking of when they're saying, I don't want AI, they're thinking of, I don't want these pieces of AI software in my phone, or I don't care about these AI pieces of software. And I get it, because most of them are a bit rubbish. Because at the moment, when you use AI, it has to ping back to the server, and it's slow and not particularly exciting. When we get to AI edge devices, having AI on our telephones and it's natively built in, it might be a different thing, but it's going to be very difficult for the consumer to tell the difference, because everything right now just has the label artificial intelligence slapped on it, whether or not it is, and whether or not it's software or hardware. There was something I saw the other day, which was a microwave. Let's see if I can find it. It's a microwave that purportedly was artificial intelligence driven. No, sorry, not a microwave. It was a pizza oven. There we go. There we go. Uni has a new pizza oven. It's very exciting. This is going to be on everyone's Christmas list. So Uni has a pizza oven that adds AI with something called pizza intelligence. I don't think this is a joke, but I can't tell, which is telling when it's hard to tell if something is a joke or not. So have you ever looked at your pizza oven and wished it was just a bit smarter? Uni has, and that's why the Vault 2 comes loaded with pizza intelligence, an adaptive heating system designed to deliver a more even and consistent cooking temperature. Basically, it's using AI to adjust the temperature. We have had that technology for a while. It's called a thermostat. We have not called thermostats artificial intelligence. It is a feedback loop, basically. If the thermostat sees that something is, or detects that something is too hot, it will lower the heating element. If the thermostat detects that something is too cold, it will raise the output going through the heating element. We've had that for a long time. We have not been calling that AI. There is an intelligence of sorts. It's not really a decision-making process, and it is an intelligence that we have put into the machine. And I think a lot of manufacturers, whether it's telephones, whether it's pizza ovens, I mean, anyone, they're just slapping the word AI on it. I was in a hardware shop the other day, and all of the new dishwashers and fridges, etc., all have some kind of AI capability. And most of the time it is just supposedly more intelligent algorithms detecting how long you should run a spin cycle, etc., etc. It's not the same thing as we are using in ChatGPT. These are just feedback loop systems, but with the name artificial intelligence slapped on it. So the problem with this is that it makes the consumers, it makes the general public very wary of AI. And I fully understand why, because if we slap the term AI on anything and then people have a poor experience with it, then they are very rightfully going to say, oh, that's AI's trash. I've got this new AI feature on my Google Pixel phone and it's not very good, so all AI is rubbish. That is a fair, logical leap to make. And it's a problem because all of these manufacturers, any business out there is just slapping the word AI or the word agent onto their products, onto their business in order to raise money, in order to make sales. But a lot of the time it is not well thought out, or it's not even artificial intelligence, but the consumer cannot tell the difference. So this study about people not caring about AI or actively not wanting AI in their telephones, I 100% get it. I personally do not use AI on my telephone, and I use AI in nearly everything, but the iPhone artificial intelligence is terrible. It is not helpful at all. Jay Moore, thank you for that. We'll give this offer a try with Perplexity. I currently use Perplexity free. Yeah, give it a shot and hopefully it works. I don't know the terms and conditions, like in terms of who can use it. I think you need to be a new user. That might be an issue though. Although you could always you could use a different email account. Give that a go. Let me hop over to some questions. And remember everybody, I will be, in about half an hour, I'll be doing another live stream where I'm building in public. We're getting there. The basics are working of the application. So we're going to start building from there. Mind and Glory, thank you, Kyle. I've been trying to get a straight answer on this for over a week. Awesome. Yeah, the question of how do we get a deterministic answer from an AI like ChatGPT? Basic answer being we don't really. We get a stochastic random answer, but there are ways to constrain the answer and to force the AI to fit it into a certain framework when we get the answer back, and that's probably the only way to do it. And for those kind of tasks, we might want to just use code instead of using a large language model. Good morning, Between the Lines. Trick says, just a marketing ploy. Yes, 100%. Was it 10 years ago? 10 years ago, there was another fad. Actually, sorry, that's unfair because I don't think AI is a fad. But there was a fad called Internet of Things, IoT. And it was this idea of you need to connect everything you own to the internet. So it was internet-powered toasters and stuff like that. And nobody at any point kind of stood back and was like, do we need to connect our toaster to the internet? And they'd come up with bizarre kind of use cases. Oh, it allows you to pre-warm it on your way home. It's like, I don't want to do that. It's going to burst my house into flames. Thank you very much. But it was all the rage. So again, you'd go to a shop and all of the appliances would have internet connection. Okay, cool. But we got over that, thankfully, which is useful. So we're not having to run Ethernet cables into our fridges and dishwashers. Don Pablo says there's an issue creating websites with Lovable. They don't rank on Google. Yes, there's a reason for that. So they use, by default, let me get this right, they use client-side rendering, CSR. To rank on Google properly, we need to use SSR, a server-side rendering. And the reason for this is when the Google Spider, their little bot, goes to different websites, it's going to be looking for, it needs the page to render so that it can see what's on the page. With client-side rendering, which is what Lovable applications use, that doesn't necessarily happen. There are ways to force that rendering, but it's a bit tricky. So ideally, we want server-side rendering, which means we need to take our Lovable project and deploy it on something like Vercel, and then we can do a lot more. We can get it rendering, but by default, it will not render because of the way that it is built. That's primarily because they are web applications rather than static web pages. So if we want someone to rank, it's much better to have a static web page, something that the Spider, the bot, can read very easily. So if you are building a site for SEO in particular, what you can do is you can build most of your static content, your blog, for example, homepage, landing pages, the static content gets built normally, and then you build web apps using Lovable, so the more interactive elements. And then you can either place them on a subdomain or you can place them like in a folder at the end of that domain. But yes, you're right. So they are CSR, client-side rendering, rather than SSR. That is the case for most, somebody will correct me here, web apps, because web apps have that interactivity, they have that complexity. So it's difficult for a Google bot to navigate its way through that, and it won't render properly for the Google bot. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong, but that is, I believe, the case. So you need to basically make a static version of the bits that you want to rank, and you can do that on Vercel. But out of the box, correct, Lovable is not ideal for creating SEO focused websites. It is better for creating web apps. Yeah, Don Pablo, and that's the difference. If you look up CSR, client-side rendering, versus SSR, server-side rendering, you'll be able to see the difference. Or, I don't look it up, ask ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT about it to explain the difference and how you can translate something that you built that is CSR into SSR, or whether you should make a static version of it that is served to the bots. There are ways to do it. It's just an additional few steps, unfortunately. I know this because I built a big old SEO focused website and then realized that it was client-side rendering and it had a lot of content on it. So I had to go through the process of making sure that was server-side rendering. That was a painful lesson, but I got it done eventually. So I feel you right now. This page had about 700,000 words of content on it as well. So it was a logistical nightmare. So hopefully you haven't got that far. I want to pull up this article, which is another study. Okay, let's go ahead and check how big the study is first, because we always do this because we don't care otherwise. 17,000 adults. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Okay, this is talking about various different studies. That's fine. So we know, and we've known for a little while, that there are gaps appearing in AI adoption. It is mainly men who are using it. It's mainly white men too. It's mainly people like me, like I'm part of the problem here, are using generative AI a lot more than other groups. So there is a potential problem here where if AI is all we think it is, and it is going to allow this productivity to 10x to 100x, then if only certain people have or are using this technology, they are going to increase income gaps, they're going to increase societal gaps as well. So there is this question of how do we make sure that all groups are using it, and why are certain groups not using it, and is that a problem, and do we need to address this? There's a lot to unpack here, but I just want to give you the numbers. So women are 20% less likely to use generative AI than men. According to a new study, both at work and in everyday life, they account for 42% of global ChatGPT website users, 42.4% of Perplexity users, and 31% of Anthropic users. So that's interesting. So 70% of Anthropic users are male, 30% are female, and then 40% of ChatGPT are female, 60% are male, roughly. So there is a gender skew. We tend to see this with all new technologies. There tends to be a higher male adoption initially, followed, and then it levels out over time. So I think the internet is now 50-50, but at least initially it was not. It was very male-driven at first. So the researchers from the Haas School of Business have analysed data from 18 studies, so a meta-study encompassing more than 140,000 individuals worldwide, and found that the gender gap persists in nearly all regions, sectors and occupations. Across 12 studies, women had a 22% lower chance of using Gen AI than men. The study also took into account from SimilarWeb, which shows first-party analytics, which showed that only 27.2% of global ChatGPT app downloads are from women, and it's only 25% in the US. That's interesting. So people downloading the app version onto their telephone is 75% male in the US. I'm sure they had SimilarWeb. Public information is not very useful, but I'm sure they did some kind of control on that. So here we go, drivers behind women's lower adoption. So we can see a pattern, but that working out what the cause is difficult. We can generally see correlations, but finding the causation is difficult. The paper, though, highlights several drivers of the gender gap. Women report lower awareness of AI tools and less understanding of how to use them, particularly because they may work in roles less exposed to technology. Okay, so already roles like engineering skew heavily male. So roles in engineering, in a sector like engineering, because it is more male dominated and it's more exposed to AI, that would make sense that men are using AI more because there are more men in that field. That kind of makes sense. They also express less confidence when prompting chatbots and are less persistent when outputs are satisfactory. So this is an interesting one. There was a study in Denmark, and it was a long time ago. It's about a year ago. Let's see if they reference it. No, I've got the Kenya study. I don't see Denmark. They had a study in Denmark where they were already seeing this gap start to open up, the gender gap in the uses of artificial intelligence. And they started looking for why that is. The men and the women in these corporate settings, this is within a business, were given the same amount of training, but the women wanted more training. So that was one of the big challenges that was brought up in the Danish study, that everyone was given base training, but the women said, we want some more training, but it was not necessarily provided. Whereas it looked like, and this is relatively anecdotal, it looked like the men would be given the basic training, they're like, okay, and then they would just start, and they would start making mistakes and then learn their way around artificial intelligence, which is the way to do it, is just to start using it on a daily basis, make mistakes, realize how you can better use AI, and then go from there. It's not a technology that punishes mistakes. That if you are learning to code, for example, and you get something wrong in coding, then it won't work. But with artificial intelligence with generative AI and chatbots like ChatGPT, it's not a punitive technology. You just need to get stuck in. So whenever people ask me, how do I start using AI? I'm just like, just start using AI. That's going to be the way, and you will learn what it's good at. You learn what it's not good at, which is more important. And then you'll work out how you can fit it into everyday life. But that comes from experimentation. And it seemed from this Danish study, like with a little bit of training, the men were like, okay, cool, and just got on with it. Whereas the women were asking for more training, which was not provided. So the fix here is probably additional training. And then evidence of systemic sexism in AI. Yeah, that's fair. It's trained on the internet, which is already a bit sexist. And there will be financial consequences of biased AI, given how AI is predicted to boost global economies. In the US alone, a persistent 25% usage gap could translate into hundreds of billions of dollars in lost productivity, the paper's authors wrote. So this is kind of the second or third order consequence of this. If we have a gap in usage now, so who is using it, then we're going to get a gap in productivity. So the people who are using it, who predominantly are male at the moment, will get increased productivity, and then we will get a gap in incomes, wages, and an economic gap that will start to open up as well. So we have to think a few steps ahead to see how this is going to impact us, and that is the likely consequence, which is why it is so important. I'm a huge supporter of content creators, female content creators, who are talking to other women and saying, hey guys, we need to get on this. Because obviously me saying that is very different coming from a white dude. It comes across as almost like paternalistic and patronizing. It is not my space. It is not I should not be the one telling women what to do. That is a bad look. However, other women in tech, other women who are wonderful coders, fantastic explainers of how this AI works in the education space, I fully support, and I want them to be out there spreading this message so we can close this usage gap, so we can close the potential income gap, and we can close the productivity gap as well. But again, not my space. So I can talk about the numbers and ask the wonderful women out there to educate and help with this, but it's very different coming from me for obvious reasons. That's all I can say without just hop through the comments. I'm going to be on another live in about 20 minutes or so. Going to be doing my building in public. Okay. Oh, that's an interesting question. I have 323,000 followers on X and sell an ebook. Usually sales come from affiliates, but sometimes Google will be the referrer. Any tips on using AI to gain more sales from Google? Cool. So big question right now is, how is artificial intelligence going to affect search engine optimization? So Google traffic. We are seeing Google traffic collapse for certain websites that used to rely on Google sending traffic their way. So we spent a few months or the first year with people saying, no, it won't make any difference. This was what the SEO gurus were saying. And now we're seeing a steep decline in search traffic. And people who have relied on search traffic to make ad revenue and for their affiliate links are now in full panic mode. So now the question is, how do I optimize my content so that it appears in ChatGPT, so that it appears in large language models? We do not have an answer. I was actually at Lovable, the company, over the weekend, and the head of growth was talking about this. A question came up about search engine optimization, and she's the head of growth for the fastest growing software company in history, so she knows what she's doing. And she said, no one really knows. No one knows how best to rank inside a large language model right now. And I'm of the same opinion. There's a lot of people saying, here's like tips and tricks. Here are ways to trick ChatGPT into mentioning you. Anything that does work, that is a trick, that is grey hat, that is black hat, is not going to work for very long. And it's exactly the same as we've been doing with search engine optimization for the last few decades. You could always get away with little tricks for a little bit of time, buying backlinks or keyword stuffing. That used to be back in the early days of the internet. You would get all the keywords in white text on a white background, but all of that stuff gets destroyed by the companies who are running these algorithms like Google. With large language LLMEO, large language model engine optimization, we cannot use that name, it's terrible, or AIEO, or McDonald. We don't know yet what the best technique is. What seems to be the case is, because large language models like ChatGPT are trained on the internet, if you show up a lot on the internet, then you will show up more inside of ChatGPT. So that means that the basics of search engine optimization, getting people to link to you, making sure you have good quality content that people spend time on site for, making sure your brand is well known, making sure you have visibility, making sure you have social media that is again pointing back to your website, etc. All of this kind of stuff remains in play. So you build up your brand outside of artificial intelligence, and AI, when they train the large language model, will pick up on the size of your brand. So the same basic rules apply. So as long as you are visible in the world outside of AI, you will be visible in the world inside of AI. So that means, from a practical point of view, it doesn't really change what we do. It does, however, mean that we're going to get less and less traffic coming directly from Google because people are searching less. And Google is also showing the AI overviews at the top. So there's less reason for us to click. So we're moving towards something called the zero-click internet. That is happening fast. But it's still important to follow through the same tactics you would use to rank on Google, because the large language models are currently trained on the actual internet itself. So the more visibility you have on the internet, the more visibility you have in large language models. That seems to be the general consensus at the moment. It's nothing revolutionary, it's nothing that exciting, but it's basically keep doing good business and being visible. So whatever you were doing before, keep doing that. But just do not rely on people to come to your Google website, to your website directly anymore, because they're increasingly going to be coming through ChatGPT. Sorry, I don't have a definite answer, but nobody does. So even the head of Lovable Growth said, we don't really know. Nobody really knows right now. And this is a big company, and that is the same with many companies that I talk to, large companies. The consensus is, don't know, we're not sure. We're trying out different things. We're seeing what works, but we are just focusing on making sure our brand is visible because that seems to pick up in ChatGPT. So hopefully that's useful. But you will probably see the Google referrals dropping, but hopefully you'll see ChatGPT and other large language models referrals increasing. Who was it? I saw someone tweeting about this the other day, where for the first time ever, their highest referral source in Google Analytics was ChatGPT. And it was a non-existent source about 6 months ago, and it just slowly crept up because they were showing up. So it's a $1 million question. Whoever cracks that is going to be in for, they're going to do very well. It's where all the SEO experts are pivoting as well, because it makes sense. But what will happen is, or very likely happen, is if somebody cracks it, if somebody works out this is how you appear on ChatGPT every time for this particular question, then OpenAI is going to tweak the algorithm. They're going to tweak how it shows results. Also, I think it's when rather than if, when the large language models introduce advertising, which they're going to do because they need to make money at some point, that's going to change the equilibrium as well, because suddenly you'll be able to pay for results, or you'll be able to insert paid links. And they're definitely moving in that direction. I think it's who's going to blink first. Nobody wants to be the first large language model, the first AI provider to put ads in, because they will lose. Everyone will be up in arms. I think so. Bard. So Gemini, before it was Gemini, Bard did an experiment and people hated it, obviously. And there were some rumblings about OpenAI putting in Shopify links and doing something with Shopify. And again, people got very angry about it. So I think it's who's going to blink first and add in an advertising channel and take the public fury that first company is going to experience. And then the rest of them will all fall into line and do it, because it is such an obvious monetization method. And Google in particular need to do it because their main money, Google is an advertising company primarily, their main revenue stream is Google ads. It's about 70% at a 70-80% margin. That's where they make the money. It's not from making telephones or Gmail or anything. They make it from advertising. So if Google searches and Google organic traffic is collapsing, then they need to make the money elsewhere. So they'll definitely add it into Gemini at some point. Between the lines, Minor Glory is crazy. Just shows how fast it's all changing. Yeah. So I'm on a daily basis looking at all of this stuff and keeping up. This is my job. And it's still overwhelming. Like whenever I try to go on holiday, there'll just be something new. It's like, oh God. So for most people out in the public, this is just, it's too fast. It's too fast for anyone to be able to keep up with. And this is why, in part, why I do this news show, to try to cut through some of the noise, because there's an awful lot of noise. Between the lines says ChatGPT and ChatZ.ai, which one's the best? For me, ChatGPT still. I've used ZAI. I use everything, but ZAI is at least, let me pull up the benchmarks at the moment. What's going on here? So ZAI is powered by GLM 4.5. I'm glad that the Chinese as well are terrible at naming these things. Let me look it up in, not LM Arena. Put it over to here. It's good, but it's very hard to compete with what's going on here? So I'm trying to pull up where it is in the rankings right now. I know that doesn't mean everything, but it's useful to get a basic idea. Z.ai. There we go. Okay, 9th. Well done. Just going to pull that into my screen. For some reason, I can't pull that into my screen. I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to get rid of that. So currently, they're sitting at GLM 4.5 is sitting at 9th in LM Arena. Amazing. Really good work. So it is open source. That is the main, extremely large benefit of using something like GLM 4.5 is that you can build off the back of it, whereas something that's proprietary like ChatGPT, obviously you can't. You can build with using their API, but you can't build open source unless you use their new one, which is GPT OSS. But yeah, GLM 4.5 is solid and it's open source, which I think is more important. So it's going to be if you're building with AI, it's going to be a contender as well. But I think for most people, general day-to-day use, it's probably still ChatGPT. But if you are building specifically and you're building locally, then GLM, it's going to be great. Awesome. So I'm actually going to finish up here. Oh, here's a good question from P. Query. Will there be links to all of your articles? Yes, They appear in the newsletter. So every single day we put out a newsletter, which is a summary of the last live. So I know I cover quite a lot and I talk very fast. So what we do is we have a text summary and it has links to the parts of the video that are relevant. And that is a free newsletter. You can find the link in the bio, and that comes out every single day at 8 a.m, I think. And it will have a text summary of what I've just discussed. So things like the gender gap, for example, as well as links to the articles so you can go and read it yourself. And that is 8 a.m. every single day. That is a free newsletter. So you can find the link in the bio for that. And that's another way to condense the information, because listening to me talk about AI every single day for an hour is a big commitment. I know some people do, and good for you guys. Awesome. I'm going to finish up for today. I'm going to be back in about 10-20 minutes where I'm going to be continuing to build in public. It is day 4. The challenge is I'm going to be building for 30 days, building out an application and launching it and hopefully taking it to revenue in just 30 days. I found out yesterday that there's a new, let me put it up because this is my challenge. There's a Lovable app that reached $1 million. Anton posted about it. Let me find it. Anton Osika. Someone just built a company with Lovable that hit $1 million in 5 months. So the note from the actual company: this marks the week that ShiftNext crosses $1 million in revenue. The primary software and infrastructure we're running off is Lovable. Amazing. Our first dollar of revenue was in April from nurses who are using a Lovable application. They had no idea it's crafted with AI. Now it is grind time. From here on out, we put our heads down and push for success and adoption. This milestone is big, but we haven't reached our end goal. Our clients have no idea the feature set that's coming out to them. Watch for our name. So ShiftNext, NEX. They hit $1 million within 5 months using a Lovable application. I don't think I'm going to hit that, but I want to build basically a portfolio of applications, a portfolio of software over the next few months. I'm going to be building one per month over 30 days, launching it, getting it to money, and then building something new. So you can follow along on the live streams. An important part of this is I'm only working on it for 1 hour a day. I've cheated a little bit and done some extra work afterwards, but I'm trying to be good because I want to show that this is possible for anyone. Anyone can hop onto a tool like Lovable. I am not sponsored by them, but I was at their offices at the weekend, which I have lots of swag here on my desk. I want to show that anyone can, from scratch, build an application and get it launched and generate an income from what they've built. So I'm going to be doing it an hour a day because I know that most people have jobs, families, other responsibilities you need to look after. So if I just grinded it for 6 hours a day for a month, that doesn't really help anyone. So if you want to follow along, either with watching me build or with building yourself, that would be amazing. And also give you a shout out on the live as well. If you can come into live and tell me what you're building, we can point some people your way when you need beta testers, for example, because it's fun to build together. So I'm going to be doing that live, and again, that will also be on YouTube. So everything goes onto YouTube, all of the live videos, but they're also cut up into the individual news segments, and now the new live, which is building in public. And there is a newsletter which comes out every single day as well, and I am very busy. Oh, one more thing. I'm giving a webinar today at 6 p.m. UK time, talking about giving workshops to businesses and how you can get paid very well, extremely well, a couple of $1,000s per hour by going into businesses and teaching them about artificial intelligence. And it is way lower level than you would expect. You do not need a PhD in artificial intelligence, machine learning. In fact, that gets in the way. And I'm going to talk about why that is in the webinar. And I'll also be talking about things like public speaking. I'm very naturally introverted. I do not like talking on stage or talking to camera, but it is something that I have got over and become, I think, fairly adept at in just a year or so. And I'm going to talk about how I did that and how being able to speak in public, being able to talk to camera, being able to do this kind of thing is a superpower, like it's really valuable. So when we connect the two, your knowledge of artificial intelligence, ability to talk about it in public, plus your industry experience, your industry background, your industry links, etc. We bring it all together, and then we talk about how you can package that up into a workshop where you go and teach companies in your industry. You can get paid very well. So the highest I've done is $4,000 in 1 hour, but most of the time I'm charging about $1,500, $2,000 per hour, and my students charge a similar rate as well. There will be a webinar about that tonight at 6 p.m, totally free. There's a recording available as well if you want that, but you need to sign up for the webinar to get sent the recording, if that makes sense. Awesome. So I will see some of you on the next, which is Building a Republic. I will see some of you on the later online webinar, 6 p.m. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of my face today if you want to. But if I don't see you then, I will see you tomorrow morning. And thank you so much, everybody. And I'll see you shortly. Cheers.